So now let's see. I've invited some of the people who are on the stage. I'm sorry, in the queue. You got to respond because you're going to get bumped out of order here. Some of you have been waiting for a really long time. But let's go ahead and start with Eng. I want to say ENG.
Hello.
Yes, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Alhamdulillah. My question is like there are a lot of restrictions to have a relationship with any girl before getting married, like before engagement. How I can know the correct restrictions that I have to make for any girl before getting married? To make it clear, like. We are not allowed to have a relationship out of marriage in Islam.
Right.
So how I can know this girl without breaking these restrictions in Islam?
Right. No, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. And so the boundaries, right? When we talk about how to the courtship,
exactly.
Right. The courtship process in Islam is very clear. We can certainly talk to one another. The major, ruling would be to never be alone in a private place with a person of the opposite sex. So that means in a space where it cannot be like it's totally out of public view, right? So if you're in any space, and this could extend also to social media, if you're speaking privately one-on-one with someone on the phone or on text messages, you are opening the door for a lot of very intimate or other conversations to happen, because that level of formality is out the door when you're having those intimate spaces. So I would say try to have very limited interactions in those spaces, and rather if you want to have a conversation on the phone just to kind of get to know someone, fine, but make sure you're in a public space. Maybe your parents are in the same room with you, or your sibling, or somewhere you're not alone, right? That person can be on the other side on the phone alone, but at least there's something like that. And if you want to do this completely within the boundaries of Islam, that would be the recommendation. But I would say do more face-to-face interactions if it's possible. If we're talking long distance relationships, obviously that's not possible or practical. But using the mediums that we have at our disposal to try to have healthy interactions with each other that do not open the door for those that intimate that part of our to open the door for that. Because for example, like, you shouldn't be talking to someone midnight in your bed while he's in bed or she's in bed. Like, that's just totally inappropriate. I mean, first of all, it's nighttime. It's very, very comfortable, feeling or state that you're in. Plus, it's like, what other things could come to your mind at that time, right? Your bedroom voice, as they call it, is very obvious, right? So you want to be alert. You want to be open. You want to be dynamic in your voice. You don't want to allow your voice to even get to that level. And these are the things that happen to a lot of people when they open the door of intimate conversations, even on the phone or on text messages, the flirting, the emojis. Cut all that out. Just keep it professional. And the best way to do that, honestly, is just to have people in the room or in the same space as you, because it keeps you more, responsible with the way that you speak. And if you're both doing that at the same time, then that's healthy. And then in terms of physical meetings, yes, make sure that you're always in a public space. So, if you want to meet for coffee, as long as there's other people and they can see you, don't get in the same car with this person. They don't need to pick you up. Go your separate ways. These are all advice that I would give to anybody who asks me about how should I, halal date someone. Well, these are the ways. You can choose to think of this as, oh my God, that is way, too old fashioned, or not. But this is what our Sharia teaches us, to keep ourselves safe and protected from the consequences of not being mindful and vigilant over our own weaknesses. So these are the things that we have to keep in place. So I hope that answers your questions, Ang.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Jazakallah khair, mashallah. So now I'm going to, and by the way, once you are done, we're going to move you back to audience just to keep the stage clear. So Sister Hafsa, assalamu alaikum, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Alaikum salam, and thank you and Dr. Nafisa for this. It was really, really useful and pertinent as well. Okay, so I'm not sure if my question qualifies for this talk, but for instance, if you've gone through this process and you are now in the marriage, but unfortunately it has changed because, you know, who you spoke to, who you thought you were marrying is no longer that person. What do you advise in that circumstance?
Ooh, that's a heavy one. It's interesting because someone actually messaged me when they saw the flyer that I posted yesterday on Instagram with the same question. They were being a little light about it, but it's like, oh, what if you've already married the wrong person? You know, I'm sure people in the audience who are married may be thinking a lot about their choices and whether or not, you know, they made some mistakes. And, you know, that's going to be the experience that a lot of people have, because no marriage is perfect. So I would say, you know, if you feel that there's an incompatibility with your partner, then you do want to assess, you know, this is an investment. Marriage is an investment, and whether or not you're getting everything that you thought you're going to get out of that investment or not shouldn't be necessarily, you know, an indicator of whether or not you need to change anything in terms of leaving the marriage or anything like that. But certainly you could improve on trying to communicate better, or maybe address the differences that you've now, you know, seen come out since, I mean, and now that you're in the relationship. And I'm a big advocate. I'm a mental health advocate. I do think that therapy can help a lot of couples. I've seen it help couples who have never gone that route before, and then they're in a marriage, and if, you know, life happens, children happen, responsibilities happen, the relationship gets overwhelmed, but you know, they're drifting apart, and they need, you know, someone, an objective person who can help them to find their way back to each other, or at least come to find a common ground. Sometimes that's necessary to do. So I would say, if you're able to look into couples therapy and try to work out your differences, and inshallah make a lot of dua. I mean, there's that part of it too. You know, whatever you're missing, if it's weighing on you, if it's really affecting your overall life quality, I think doing both, being proactive in terms of actual practical steps to getting the relationship on a better, healthier track, as well as spiritually consistently asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's the one who changes hearts. And I've seen people transform, and we should never write people off as though that they are done, you know, that they're just fixed and they'll never grow. That's really arrogant place for anybody to be in. And we're not, in our faith, we're not taught that. If God gives every single human being an opportunity to redeem themselves, even up until their last breath, then we should have hope in that people can transform, but they also should be given the tools and the opportunity to do so. And that's not, we can't be imposed or appointed, as they say, the healer, right? Sometimes people think that they can do it on themselves, their own. Like, I'll just fix this person. But if you're in a marriage 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and you're seeing like, nope, none of the advice I give or anything that I've given to try to make this relationship work is working, then you kind of have to be humble to say, you know what, I need to bring in another person, and then convince them, hopefully, to be open to that in a non-threatening, non-territorial. I mean, you know, because sometimes people approach couples therapy like it's all about, I'm so annoyed with you that I need to take you to someone to fix you. That's not how you do it. You say, we're not healthy. We're not, as a marriage, as a couple, we're not healthy. Just like you would go to a doctor when you see your physical body presenting with symptoms of sickness. A marriage can be treated the same way. Like, our marriage is sick. We need to go to a person who can help diagnose it. So it's not me just trying to get someone in my corner to attack you, which is unfortunately how a lot of people approach therapy. But going from that very mature, mutually beneficial lens that, listen, we need to get better. I want this to work. I'm committed, but I need help. You need help. Let's go to a person and let's vet some options and see how that goes, inshallah. And then on the other side, also making dua. So Dr. Nafisa, did you have anything else to add to this?
No, I think your advice on getting therapy is really important. Don't ever make decisions or rash decisions about divorce, because right now at this moment, you're feeling like, well, I married the wrong person. Really go to somebody, talk to an objective person, see if there's anything salvageable about this relationship. Maybe there are just communication issues that need to be worked on. Maybe it's just changing your expectations, or the way you talk to each other, or the expectations you have of each other. Maybe it's something you need to work on. Maybe you're under so much stress, you're more reactive. And so you're never going to know all this unless you go and talk to somebody and see what's going on. go with the intention of saving this marriage and saving this relationship. But obviously there are some marriages that are broken, they're completely broken and they cannot be fixed. They're abusive, they're hurtful, and nothing you do will be able to fix it. And this is why Islam, as much as it's not necessarily liked in Islam, it is allowed and it is permitted, and we need to consider that as a last resort. But I really, really recommend for all of my patients, do everything you can, and then with a calm and peaceful heart, make that decision towards divorce, not out of anger, not out of rage, not out of frustration.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Nafisa. Hafsa, did you have anything else to add or follow up to that?
There is, but I'll ask it another time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your question, mashallah. Jazakallah khairan. Great. So we'll have I want to say, come up to the stage. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah bless you for the very informative session. My question is regarding the point or the questions that you suggested to figure out the red flags when you told us we need to ask ourselves, do I feel respected, or do I respect her? Do I trust? Do I feel safe? Do I feel calm and peace? My question is, why did you differentiate between third and fourth point? What is the difference between feeling safe, feeling calm and peace? And do we need to have all the answers? Yes, 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 yes. What if one of them was no, or I'm not sure? Do we need to give it a chance or work on, or we need just like to consider it's a big red flag and run away, kind of?
Sure. No, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Very good questions. When I was reading the list, I kind of paused in a moment too, thinking the same, like what would be the differentiation between the safety and the calm? And I think I understood it, and I remember we wrote this over 10 years ago, as being physically, right? Because physically, a person may not feel quite safe, or even safe in terms of future plans. So I think it's up for interpretation. But yes, in many ways they do overlap. So, and we could have fused them into 3 questions instead of 4. Good point. And then as far as your other question, as we mentioned, if you're not quite there with, positive affirmed answers on all those, the point is take your time to get to there. What is it more that I need to do? I need more questions. Do I have more questions that would give me that sense of assurance in that person, that would give me that sense of trust or calm? Do we need to maybe, as I mentioned before, pursue some sort of premarital counseling where an objective person in their line of questioning could maybe ascertain certain things for me? Sometimes another person's perspective may, bring out the answers to the questions that you don't even know you have, right? So sometimes having those other opportunities of getting information can help bring some clarity and some, more peace to your heart about a person. But when we're left to our own selves, I think it's very normal to be insecure. And this is why Islamically speaking, we're always, encouraged to, when we're making major decisions in our life, to first and foremost trust in istikhara, right? To put that should be default. Like, we ask Allah for guidance because we don't know. We have no clue what's in our good, right? What's in our khair. But also to have those systems or protocols in place where we can call on certain people to kind of be there for us, to give us the objective perspective that we need to be able to read into certain questions or situations, to read that person a little bit with more clarity, and so that we're not blinded by emotion or anything else. So I would say it doesn't necessarily mean that's it, you're done with the person. It just means you have more work to do to get to the point of clarity that you need. Okay.
I wanted to add to that.
Okay, please. I'm sorry. Yes. And Dr. Nafisa will go ahead and add. Go ahead. Yes.
My differentiation is sometimes they might trigger our anxiety, and that's where we're not feeling calm, right? I mean, we talked about how we shouldn't think that just because somebody's giving us butterflies in our stomach, that's the only thing that equates love and romance or whatever. When somebody is triggering our anxiety, they might be doing all the right things, but something about what they're doing is creating anxious feelings for us. They're triggering something within ourselves. And again, this might have nothing to do with them. This might be something that you need to work on. You need to ask yourself, is this me? Is this something that's waking something up inside of me? This is an issue that I have to deal with, or is it something that I need to look outside of myself and say that they're creating for me? And this is the reason for those questions. It's not always about the other person and saying whether they're all good or all bad. We don't want to have that black and white thinking. We also have to look at ourselves and see who are we when we're around them? Are we happy? Are we content? Like Amal Clooney was always talking about how when she met George Clooney, her friends kept telling her how she couldn't stop smiling, how she was so happy. They've never seen her happier. That's something we need to consider. Like, are these people making us happy, or are we constantly in turmoil and drama because of this relationship? So those are the questions you need to ask yourself. And like Hosai said, take your time and really get to understand what that situation is. Is it you? Is it them? Is it the situation? And then go forward and make those decisions, as opposed to thinking it's one or the other or all or nothing.
Really good points. Thank you so much, Dr. Nafisa. So did you have any follow-up questions, or can we move on?
Oh, that was very informative. I think cleared out my inquiry. Just one question. So, you kept referring to an article from if I'm not wrong, throughout your talk. Is that like an article that we could read or something?
Yes.
Or could you go back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, of course. So the name of this room, if you look at the top for everyone who just joined as well, is the name of the article that Dr. Nafisa and I wrote. We co-wrote this article back in 2010. And so you may have missed the beginning where we introduced the article and why we're doing this event. This article, mashallah, was very well received. It's globally recognized. A lot of different websites took it and it became viral. Huffington Post also took it in the UK. So mashallah, it just did really well. And recently, about a week ago, I was tagged on an Instagram post where someone had basically taken our content, and without citing us, they created an Instagram post on a pretty popular Islamic website with millions of followers, and then that was also went viral. The same post, I saw it on multiple pages. So I thought, you know what, this is our content. We should actually do it, because we recognize there's a lot of singles, there's a lot of people who need some guidance on this, who might not have access to people in their community or family or what have you. So let's just go ahead and do this event. Mashallah, Dr. Nafisa was gracious enough to come and join me today, but the article is available. She just mentioned also on her website, she's put the article, it's a free PDF. If you go to the website transforminganxiety.com/resources, you'll see the whole article there. But also, we will produce this whole talk. She's going to make it a podcast episode on her Instagram page. So I would say follow Dr. Nafisa, and you'll get all of this. But if you did a quick Google for the name of this room with our names, Hosai and Nafisa, you will see the article from our website, mentalhealth4muslims.com. So that's how you get to the article. But thank you so much, Iz, for your question. I hope that clears it up for you.
It did. Jazakallah khair. It did.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, mashallah, for your question. Alhamdulillah. So now we will go to Brother Bilal. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome.
Wa alaikum salam. Yeah, this session has been extremely helpful. Just hearing from everyone's, their situations, and this has been extremely helpful. Thank you so much. My question is, me and my wife, we've been recently married, and alhamdulillah, we've, with every aspect of life, we've had a really good understanding. There's open communication. There's nothing really I can think of which I'm not happy with. Everything is really good. There's one aspect though, which is whenever it comes to her interacting with my parents, she hesitates, and she has a little bit of a baggage. And what's happened is her sister is going through a situation with her in-laws, and it feels like right from day one, there's been that hesitation. And I have, I've been working with my parents and sort of making sure that, they give us the space. They don't really, intrude in our day-to-day. So that's been happening. And still I feel like she's bringing that baggage into our relationship. Even with, one-off phone calls, she really hesitates and tries to find a way to avoid any interaction whatsoever. And it's a little difficult for me, because it's almost like there's these two worlds and they're unable to kind of coexist in harmony. So, and just one more piece of information, my parents live in a different country. So the only means of communication is, these one-off phone calls like once in 2 weeks.
Right. So this is a very interesting question. Thank you, first of all, Brother Bilal, for your kind words and this question, because I think it highlights something that we need to address in our community, which is this tendency for, like you said, to take, someone else's experience and use that to fuel maybe fear or project, whatever anxieties we have about a situation occurring in our own. And then it kind of, just affects our communication with our partner. So it seems like to me, that's exactly what may be happening here. Again, I don't know, I haven't heard from her end, but from what you've described, it sounds like she may be getting some sort of advice, either indirectly or directly, about not really letting, keeping up a wall basically between herself and your parents. And that may be because of the fear of watching what's happening to her sister and her own in-laws situation. So that, that's certainly what sounds like is happening. I think the challenge for you is, because, her sister is likely talking to her and telling her a lot of detail, it is really affecting her, and increasing her fears about this topic. And so she, everybody has that, it's a human, nature to want to preserve ourselves and our security and our relationship. So she's being affected by it. But I think you trying to directly, advise her may be a problem, because there's a distrust, right? There's unfortunately some level of distrust that she may have, not necessarily towards you, but just the whole situation. So it's a lot easier to avoid it, right? So that seems why she's not really open, and she's kind of just, seems to be very closed off, because there's an immense fear and distrust. So I would say, I think maybe you may benefit. And as we mentioned to the sister earlier, Sister Hafsa, about the importance of, or the benefit of seeking out an objective third person who can come with a different angle, so that she doesn't think you're just trying to, convince her of something because it benefits you and you're not really caring about her needs, but that they could tell her, listen, you have to give your in-laws, be able to separate what's happening with your sister and her situation between your own in-laws. You have a total independent relationship. They're not the same, and learn to bring down some of those walls and open communication in a healthy way, where you don't have intrusion, you don't have meddling and all of those things, which is maybe what she's afraid of happening, right? It's like, once I open the door, is it going to just, am I giving up autonomy? Am I giving up a lot of things in my relationship? So she may have all these fears. But I think if she learns from a third person, an objective person who can talk to her and give her nasiha and advice about, listen, your relationship with your husband is the most important thing for you to maintain, in terms of your own family and keeping a balance in your home. So these are the things that are affecting your connection with him. And let's try to find a common ground, independent of everything that's happening with your sister, and try to help her to see that she's projecting what's going on there into her own relationship. But it's hard for you to help her see that. So I don't think you're in the best position to do it, but I do think an objective therapist or someone in that capacity can help her see that she needs to respect you and her own relationship, and see it as independent of what's going on with her sister. So Dr. Nafisa, did you have anything to add to that for Brother Bilal?
I'm sorry, I ended up accidentally kicking myself out, so I didn't even hear the question, but I think you did a good job answering that.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering where you went. Okay, so Bilal, I hope that was helpful to you, but I do think look into seeking a therapist. I know there's a big stigma for some reason. I mean, I know actually what reason it is, but there's a big stigma in our community that still unfortunately permeates about mental health and seeking help. But honestly, if you really think about the wisdom of getting intervention to prevent long-term problems, it speaks to a person's emotional intelligence, it speaks to a person's wisdom, it speaks to a person's taqwa, all of those beautiful virtues that we all want, when they are preempting problems, when they are avoiding major problems. It doesn't speak to strength to think that you can diagnose, medicate, help your own self for years and years and years, and only to further and further your problems. That speaks to a weakness that unfortunately is perceived as some sort of strength, like, oh, just figure out your own problems. But no, if you're not able to, because precedent says that, you look at the history, then you have to at some point say, even if the Prophet ﷺ, who was the most beloved and most perfect human being ever, sought counsel from different people, then who am I to not seek counsel when I need help, and to do it through the proper channels, not just your uncle, your cousin, your brother or sister, but someone who's a professional, who's had plenty of experience with marriage or with marriages, and can give you advice that's tested, right? It's actual tested advice. So that's why going to a professional, I think, is the best course for someone in your situation, Brother Bilal. But thank you. Did you have any follow-up to that?
No, I just want to say all the suggestions you made make a lot of sense to me. Inshallah, I'm going to look into that. Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless you and reward you. Thank you so much. Inshallah. And look into, there's a lot of therapists, alhamdulillah, Muslim therapists. I would definitely suggest looking for someone who has the cultural context, the religious context, and obviously the clinical, credentials to be able to advise you, inshallah. May Allah bless you and increase you. Thank you so much. And reward you for this question, alhamdulillah. So, and to all of our questioners, may Allah bless all of you. So now we have Sister Nurhan, I want to say. Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for this session. I would ask mainly about the how to avoid marrying the wrong person. Related to the question or the answer you said about the boundaries, and I know the boundaries, and I'm trying so much to watch Allah in all my actions, and but I'm always confusing between that how I would know the person with all the boundaries I should put, like in khutbah or on the time before marrying. I was in a relationship. And we just keep have a very deep questions and informative, and we took care so much about not to cut the boundaries or this stuff, and then we fell. Because with a deep talk, you feel like you cut the boundaries sometimes. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. So basically, because you talked so much and you were having such deep conversations, you worried that you were crossing an intimate boundary. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm trying this. I'm trying to balance between having a boundaries, boundaries that Allah would be satisfied with it. And know the person, because with a lot of divorce these days, you always feel like you don't know the person that you would, after marrying, he would be another person. So you have to know him so much, and every single detail about him. And he too, he wants to know every single detail about you.
Sir, no, this is a great question. Yeah, no, it's a great question. Thank you, Sister Naran. I think what I would say is, we have to, at a certain point, move away from these one-on-one conversations with a potential partner and bring them into a social context, because that actually is very helpful. I mean, I've actually been in events where, for example, many years ago, when I lived in Southern California, we had a lot of single friends. And so some of my married friends and I, we thought we need to help support our single friends by putting something together that would give them an opportunity to meet other singles in an organic, kind of non-threatening, very chill environment, but also within a halal place context, right? So we did like a game night, which was, really nice. It was in someone's home. Everybody was very respectful, but we did have teams, of different people. There were a lot of singles were there, but there were also a lot of married couples. And so what we did is we facilitated conversations. We facilitated something where questions about each other could be learned, or information about one another could be learned, but in an environment that helped, the singles get to know each other. And although it wasn't these intimate details, it was still productive, because it gave you insight into that person's past or something. You know, they revealed information about themselves through the conversations that were happening. But I think if we did that more, where we invited, for example, you know, the family over for dinner, or with our friends, you know, let's say you have a close group of 2-3 friends, or maybe even more, and you wanted to do a social sort of, you know, a gathering where this person could be speaking to your friends, even privately. They are your, you know, they're out there hopefully watching out for you. And so the information that they provide for you is also very telling about that person. And this can help in terms of the halal haram, you know, thing, whether or not it's like, okay, are we crossing a boundary or not? Because we're talking so often, so intimately, and it's now becoming in that gray area. I think if we just kind of tried to find multiple ways and avenues of communication that stayed within that, you know, the intention is clear, like I'm still getting to know you and I'm going to do it in this way or that way, then you give yourself opportunity to not just rely on your own information that you've gathered, but also hear the perspectives of other people that hopefully you trust their judgment, and also avoid having really intimate conversations so that you're not concerned about whether or not you're saying anything inappropriate. So try, you know, I would say that that's something that is beneficial and definitely works. Okay, sorry, Dr. Nafisa, did you have anything to add? Of course.
Sometimes it's really hard to have this group conversation, because sometimes you just know the guy. You know him through from someone, but you don't have common friends.
What about a chat? Like I know people who've tried this even on a WhatsApp group. You know, it's like, I'm going to bring in a few different people, common mutual friends, or even my siblings. If you have like siblings and this person's interested in you, create a group chat, you know, where it's like, let's see how we all talk about topics, whether it's politics or religion or what have you. But having conversations even on a space like an online platform gives you some lens into this person that's different than you. And, you know, like I think it was a famous comedian, Chris Rock, who said that, you know, when you're meeting someone for the first time, it's not really you, it's your representative, right? And their representative, because we're always on our best behavior when we're trying to make those impressions on each other. But like, you know, after a while, that's hard to sustain. And so it's good to see a person in different situations. How do they interact with my brother, my sister? How do they take jokes? How do they handle tough topics like, you know, vaccination, or I don't know what other, you know, very divisive topics there are, but like political topics. You could just pick out anything and see, let's see how people, how they interact with different people. Are they respectful if someone's addressing them? You know, anyway, my point is try to find different, you know, ways of getting to know them instead of just relying on one-on-one communication, because one-on-one communication makes you feel like, you know, you have to, I mean, it's a lot of pressure to do that all the time. But also, yes, it may delve into the gray area where you start to speak about, you know, things that maybe are too early, too soon, or write out haram. You know, that's certainly the case for a lot of people, because the formality goes away. You start to get really comfortable with each other, flirting, joking around, and next thing you know, the conversations are getting heated, you know, and not in an angry sense, but you know what I mean. So I would say try to bring in some more people into that, inshallah. But thank you, Sister Nurhan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, mashallah. All right, so we're going to try to get through while there's still, okay, I'm going to have to turn off, let's see here, I'm going to turn off the hand raising because we have a lot of people in the audience. I'm sorry for those of you who may want to ask questions, but we just simply don't have the time. So I will try to get to the rest of, oh, you know what? Sorry, hold on. Okay, I am so sorry. This is what happened. When I closed off the hand raising, it turned everybody off. I thought the queue would still maintain. I am so sorry. So please raise your hand if you already had your hand raised. I want to bring you up. And forgive me for that. I did not mean to cut everybody off the queue. Okay, so mashallah, still a lot more people to go through. So let's have Sister Safura. And please do keep your comment to let's do 1 to 2 minutes, please, so that we can get through everyone. Okay, so go ahead, Sister Safura. Assalamu alaikum. Hello?
Sister, thank you so much for, welcome, salam. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for holding this conversation. I think it's very important and very beneficial for me so far. My question is that you talked about anger issues, and you mentioned someone who raises their voice or gets angry at you, etc. But what if there is no such sign that you can see that in someone you're talking to? He appears polite, etc. But if you ask specifically how often do you get angry and how you express your anger, and he mentions, for example, that he shouts and swears when he gets angry, and he's trying to work on his anger issues. So and also he mentions that he would expect that after marriage there is someone who's more calmed down if someone is having a bad time, for example, shouting, etc. Can that be considered a red flag? And because how to see if that's really a red flag and a sign of possible abuse, and how should you address it? And secondly, is it okay to test them with different scenarios, to, for example, present different scenarios to test them in their patience and how they deal with their anger issues? That's my question.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sister Safura. It's a very important point that you brought up because, first of all, we did mention the importance of looking out for these types of things. But I think with anger, it's hard because, as I just mentioned, people usually present their best, foot forward when they're trying to, get to know someone in marriage. So you may not necessarily see those interactions or those displays to gauge whether or not this person has a serious anger management problem or not, at least in the beginning of the courtship. But if you give it some time, I do believe that those things kind of reveal themselves one way or the other. Either it's directed to you or someone else. You can kind of see if this person has a tendency to be very reactive. But those things are also, I think, informed based on temperament. So, knowing a person's what we call mizaj or temperament is also very telling because it lets you know whether or not they do have that reactive, explosive sort of tendency to be, very emotive or vocal in states of anger, or if they've learned to manage that. And so, and have more subdued responses or delayed responses, or just can control that and are more composed. Spiritual practice is also a good indicator because as a Muslim, again, for those who may not know, one of the classes that we're working on, or two classes that we're working on here on Mizan throughout the week, we do Tuesdays and Thursdays classes. We're doing it on Agenda to Change Our Condition and Purification of the Heart, which are two different books written on really mastery of the self, becoming better and becoming having control and composure over the ego, over the nafs, right? What we'd call the irascible or concupiscent soul, which are the two parts of our spiritual, the way that we operate as human beings that give into our anger, the irascible side of ourselves, and our desires, or our appetite of soul. So a person who is spiritually in a practice of mujahid an-nafs is very well aware of this, and they are actively doing things like, making sure that their prayers are prayed on time, staying in a state of wudu. They know the protocols. Like, what is the protocol if you're angry in Islam? How are you supposed to, in a state of anger, right? What are you supposed to do? If a person's not well read on these matters, and they're giving you all of the, perfect, answers like, oh yeah, I don't really get angry. You don't know that, and unless they, you have opportunity or time to see them in those different situations. But at least if they are sharing with you that they have knowledge and aware of the spiritual, gravity of not having control of anger. Anger is one of the things that can literally destroy a person's spiritual state, and it's a very, if we don't know how to control it, it's a disease of the heart, first of all, but it can also lead to a lot of harm. You could harm people if you don't know how to harness that emotion. So it's something that is very important in Islam, and if a person doesn't know the spiritual side of it, then that's certainly something to explore, and you could do that together. Like, let's talk about these diseases of the heart. I mean, that's absolutely something that I think a couple should be looking at. Like, have you ever studied the diseases of the heart? Do you know what they are? And if not, let's look at that together and let's talk about that. Use these types of conversations instead of like, what's your favorite ice cream? Who cares? That's not going to impact your life. Their favorite ice cream doesn't matter, but whether or not they punch walls when they get angry will impact your life. Because when you have children, is that the type of person you want for your children to see? If they're so angry that they can't control themselves and they actually physically break things, then don't you think that will translate to other violent behavior? Sure. Or if they're playing violent video games and they're totally desensitized to these things, these are certain things to talk about, not necessarily write people off, but certainly conversation starters that I think will reveal a lot about a person's mastery over these things, just as opposed to just taking it for what they share, face value for what they tell you, right? So anyhow, I hope that answered. But Dr. Nafisa, did you have anything to add to that?
I just want to say anger is an emotion that we all have. We're all going to get angry at some point in our lives, but it's a matter of figuring out what is their coping skills. If they don't have good coping skills and anger is the only one they resort to, then that's not a good sign. That would be a red flag for me. What are they doing about their anger? I am a firm believer in Dr. Maya Angelou's quote, when people show you who they are the first time, believe them. But we make justifications for them. Oh, no, they're really not like that. But he's literally telling you, I'm struggling with my anger, and this is what I normally do. Okay, so what are you doing about that? Are you in therapy for that? Are you learning anger management skills? Are you learning how to calm yourself? Are you learning how to calm your own anxiety and your own reactions? Are you helping yourself build better coping skills? Those are all things that you can start asking and figuring out if that is something that they are actively working towards. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up and you're assuming that all of that is being worked on or will go away once you get married.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Sephora, for your question as well. Alhamdulillah. So we're going to move on now. Again, I'm going to ask everyone to please try to keep your comments to 1 to 2 minutes max so we can get through everyone. Del, I don't know if you're a brother or a sister, but welcome to the stage.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yes, my question was, I was previously married, and I went through a courtship process with him. I talked to him for several months, and, on the surface, I didn't see anything major. There were a few red flags when I look back, but, for the most part, he was a person of his word. He had, people that knew him said he was a good person, even though I do admit now, looking back, I didn't feel that much of an emotional connection. I didn't know that these questions to ask. So, but I feel like the person that I saw after I got married, when certain things happened, his personality, it came out. So I'm wondering, I know you've kind of gone over it with other people a little bit. You have gone with other people here, but how do you, when you're in that, with the Islamic courtship, it's just something that it's very, almost like an interview process. How do you get that from a person, see those clear signs in this sort of stringent process where it's very business, and like you said, everyone's trying to show their best.
Right. No, great question. Thank you, Sister Del, mashallah, for sharing your experience and for a very valid question. I think, there is no necessarily scripted way to have this process of courtship. It could be it's really subjective in terms of how the couple or the two people decide to navigate conversations. Sometimes I think we impose this idea of just being almost robotic, but we're not. We're human beings. We can have very organic, real conversations with each other. We can talk about things as long as we're not delving into the haram or allowing our guard to go down. We can talk openly about each other. And I get what you mean in terms of professional or business kind of, environments. But as I mentioned to the previous questioners, keeping, like, having a variety of different ways to see this person, because you know what, it's not always going to be just you and him, or him and or like just the two of you. There will be other people involved. Your marriage extends beyond just the family, or just the home. You're in your community, you're with your friends, you're going to be with, in larger community gatherings. So you want to see this person's personality emerge in different contexts. And I think the problem with the way that oftentimes we court one another is that it's so limited, and it's very one-on-one, and that can go sideways in so many different ways. But I think we have to just bring some more bring more people into it, because this is a huge decision, and you don't want to trust yourself. Like, I just, as much as, yes, we have judgment and we have intellects, and we can certainly know for the most part whether or not a person's going to be a good fit for us. I do think that just as with any decision in life, a big decision, we should have people or some, people in our lives, some process through which we can have other people also share their perspectives and take all of that into consideration. A mashura, right? We have that concept in Islam, that we take the advice of other people and we consider it and weigh it. And then when you have, for example, your own interactions with someone, and then your sister has her interactions, and your brother and your mom, your dad, your best friend, his brother is interacting with you. You see, like, when you're having like all these different interactions, and you're seeing each other in different scenarios, I think it gives you a much more comprehensive and holistic view of one another, as opposed to just one-on-one discourse, right? So I would say certainly give it time. Time is a big revealer. Like, time is going to tell you a lot. Anything done within a very quick amount of time is not going to show you much, right? So avoid and see that as a red flag. If someone's putting pressure on you to kind of close things up and close the deal after just a few months, you have to question, what is that arbitrary time? Why? What is the pressure that you have to do this by 3 months or 4 months? Some people are very fixed, It's like, I don't think we should talk more than 5 months. Well, why did you decide that? Maybe we need to talk more than that. Maybe because we don't see each other as often, or we have other constraints that we need more time. And that's okay. If you are invested in me, then this push or rush shouldn't compel you to force this relationship prematurely, but it should let us allow ourselves to organically, get to know each other. And then when we feel both that, our concerns and our grievances, or our needs that we had coming into the marriage, feel like we're being met, and we're getting the answers to those questions, now I'm in a healthy state to move forward to the next phase. But that takes time. So I'd say time, and bringing some other people into the picture to help you to assess this person. And also references. I think it's really important to ask for references. And there's a lot of people who are sleuths online. If you have people who are willing to go out to bat for you and check people out and vet people for you, do it. Check sources, check whatever they tell you, but don't just take them for what they share with you, because everybody wants to be, everybody wants to impress other people, but not everybody's intentions are good. And you'll be able to see who they truly are if you go through those things. So, but thank you, Del.
I wanted to add to that.
Yes, please. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, Dr. Nafisa, go ahead.
So when I was applying for my master's program in the school psychology program at San Diego State, they invited us for a week-long interview. They interviewed us individually. They interviewed us in a panel. And then they created scenarios for us to interact with each other, because they were putting a cohort together. So all of us had to interact with each other, and they watched to see how we talk to each other, how we got along with each other. And so this is a great analogy for, you said it's a business transaction, right? We can learn a lot from corporations, because we know that in a lot of job interviews, there's not a lot of one-on-one for companies that are really serious. They will have a panel of people interviewing, and it's multiple interviews. And one of the reasons that Hosai keeps saying keep the one-on-one limited is because we can get into the flirting phase, into the sexting and all of the other phases, and we forget about what the intention of this whole process is. And just like in what I had to go through for my master's program, we can have maybe one-on-one discussions, meeting them up for coffee and seeing if this is somebody I want my family to meet. So then you bring him into some family gathering. You have your family members meet him and see what they think. You can have, like she was talking about, having a group chat on WhatsApp or Instagram or whatever, all, and having these questions, but creating scenarios as well to see how are they going to respond under those conditions. What are some of the, bring up political issues, bring up religious issues, bring up value and morality issues, and see how are they responding to those things. Even somebody that is the best actor under multiple situations, multiple scenarios, you will begin to see their true character come up. Nobody can keep up appearances 24/7 all the time, but they can for that 1 hour a week or 1 hour a day that you guys are talking on the phone. They can when they're just texting or emailing you. They can be their perfect self during those short little interactions. But when you're creating these multiple scenarios, and then a lot of companies, like we talked about earlier with Steve Harvey, they won't even give you insurance unless you meet the probationary time of 90 days. You give them this probationary time. I'm not going to talk about marriage or anything until I've at least known you for 90 days and for, or whatever the limit you want to say. And until then, we're just getting to know each other. No commitments are being made. I think that allows both sides to have an escape in case it doesn't work out. And this way, you're not signing up for something long-term that's going to backfire.
Great. I love that advice. And, it occurred to me that one of the things that we may also just point out is if someone expresses interest in you and you kind of already have your process pretty laid out, like I'm not going to do certain things, I think it's really helpful to have a wing person interview almost this person who's interested in you and let them know what your process is. Because I feel like a lot of times again, depending on how we meet someone, if it's done through social media or through a network or what have you, I feel like a lot of times we have to disclose all of this information in the beginning, and that can just be so exhausting mentally for people that they don't even want to deal with it. I know people who are just like, oh, the process is so frustrating of having to talk to someone new for the first time and keep telling them all my positions on this and this and this. And I say, if you don't want to do that, then as soon as someone expresses interest, what you should do as part of your process is, I'm going to send you to my rep, my assistant or whoever. And that person, if let's say I'm your friend, right? Or we're friends, you would send them to me and I would tell them, listen, you want to get to know her, this is what you need to know. And these are sort of her requirements. Are you still interested? That way you don't have to deal with the headache of having to replay this, record broken thing, or that's what it feels like. I just have to keep repeating myself, and it wears down on a lot of singles, I know. But I really think that, and this goes for the married people in the audience, if you're married, and I say this really with intention, if you're married and you're in a position to help singles, your single friends, please do that. Offer some services. Tell them, I will vet people for you. I will, check out if you want me to read certain things or I don't know, just whatever you can offer, do that and help your friends out. Because being single, I know, because I work with a lot of people who are very, very overwhelmed and frustrated at the process. They feel like they're out and nobody cares. Like everybody's just in their own world and they're kind of left to fend for themselves in a very wild, crazy, unpredictable, unsafe environment. And that's not shame on us as a community, because we really should be better at providing spaces for our singles to meet that's not awkward and weird and strange, but rather just natural. Like, you know what? This is a brother, this is a sister, they're single, they're both, are maybe physically attracted to each other. We got over that part. Now let's see what else can, what comes to, if there's anything more to that, but facilitate and help them instead of just kind of throwing them out to themselves. So that's just that. I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that because I do think that there may be people in the audience who need to hear that. Inshallah, there are more than one way to do this, and we just have to be a little bit more nuanced in our perspective. But thank you so much, Del, for your question. Mr. Noor, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the stage.
Walaikum salam, sister. MashaAllah for your patience. I hope you're doing well, inshallah. And thank you so much for making this room. I had 3 questions. The first question is, a lot of the men that are interested in me are less knowledgeable in Islam and less practicing than I am, most predominantly. And I think that's
that's something that I don't know whether I can overlook, because when with the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, one of the main reasons to look for is their deen, right? And so when their deen, I mean, it's not like they don't have the belief, they do, but you know, some of them say, oh, we're just lazy when it comes to this or that, but they have this this idea that if they get married to someone like me, perhaps, who takes my religion much more seriously, that they will improve. But the issue with that is, I don't want to marry someone with potential of becoming interested in religion, or, you know, and that's the worry that I have. But unfortunately, like I said before, most of the men are less knowledgeable, less practicing than I am. So that's the first question. And then the second dilemma that I recently have faced with is, there's a brother, his akhlaq is, you know, great, great characteristics, comes from a good family, everything else about him is great, but I'm just not physically attracted to him. And I've made dua and I've tried everything, but I'm just not physically attracted to him. And it's like, do I take the chance, or should I just let it go and, you know, inshallah, wait for someone that perhaps one day I will be attracted to? So I just wanted to ask you in terms of like physical attractiveness,
Sure.
And because it's something, and like Sister Husai, it's not that I'm after a model or anything like that,
Right.
like the average, right? I'm not even attracted, like, again, physical attractiveness is, it's very variable, but I just don't find him attractive.
Sure. No, I understand. And I've certainly heard this from several people. So mashallah, very, very good questions. Thank you, Sister Noor. The first question is really important. I'm so glad you asked it. I don't know if you were here for the beginning of our conversation, but when reading this article, the very first point we made is do not marry potential. So I would absolutely say, if someone is not at your level or exceeding your level in terms of religious practice, that is a huge red flag. And it is not your job to be the motivator of that person to become more spiritually practicing. And if that's how they're looking at it, that's a very immature way to look at it. And I would just say, just think about it logically. If a person does not feel compelled to fulfill their obligations to God, then why would you think that they would feel any obligation to fulfill their obligations to you, right? They won't, because it's a matter of character. You take your life seriously. We're here for a reason. We're here to worship God, and everything else we do is secondary. So if a person doesn't feel value in that part of who they are, then what good is anything else at that point? Because this is going to be, especially when it comes to the female-male dynamic. I mean, in Islam, we do have the idea that the husband is supposed to be the imam of the household, the imam that holds the family, the leadership, you know, in terms of leading the way and following the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ and being an example for our children. But if they're not there to do that, and then we have to step into that role or somehow help them along with that, it's a burden on us. That's not nobody's job to do that. So if they're truly interested in you and they see that you're a religious person, then they should work on making themselves worthy of you. You know what I mean? Like paralleling at least. So whatever that means, it means go pursue your studies, go learn. It's not hard, you know? And the thing is, I like to call people out because I feel like, and this is a general thing, when people come with these types of ideas, I just say, listen, if tomorrow you got an opportunity to work at some Fortune 500 company and they were willing to pay you a salary of like 500K a year, but they told you had to go through a training first, would you do it? And you'll see a lot of people, they wouldn't even think twice. They would do it in a heartbeat, right? Because they are invested when it comes to, you know, the material world, and they'll see the investment, and there's no excuses about, oh, studying is hard, I can't read a book, and I can't do that, and I can't do this. So for material things, you'll see human beings, you know, all those excuses they give are out the door. But when it comes to religious practice, we tend to have these justifications. They just don't fly, and they shouldn't fly with you. You know, if they really want to marry you, then they should work on themselves and then say, come back, you know, I'll talk to you in a year's time, and let's see if you've evolved at all. If I'm still a single, pursue me, and we'll talk more about priorities, because to me, religion is a priority. So I would say, don't take that. I mean, I don't know. I'm very thinking about that because I've seen a lot of people suffer thinking that they can change someone, or that on the dream that they'll change, and then they end up actually going the opposite direction. So it's one thing to not be practicing, but if you really don't have that taqwa, then what if they start taking the habit of drinking or gambling? What are you going to do? Like you and I know people were in the situation that they went into a marriage with someone who wasn't very religious, but then they went backwards. They recessed to a place where it's forget, not just, being or leaving Islam. SubhanAllah, I had recently someone who was like, I don't know what to do. My husband has gone so far secular that now he's left Islam, and we have children, and I'm totally in a horrible position. So these are things you don't want to ever find yourself in. Okay, mashallah. Your second question, attraction is important. And if you have tried to get over whatever it is that is preventing you from being physically attracted, then I would really advise against talking to that person, or giving them false hope, because whether or not you think you can somehow down the line overcome it or not is again a risk that you have there's no guarantee about, but for sure right now that you're not attracted, right? And so what that may do is it may create a very unfortunate situation where you are resentful towards this person, and you may end up bringing out a side of you that you're not aware of. Because if you're not satisfied in that area and you find this person, it's one thing to not be attracted to someone, but if you have no sexual desire for them whatsoever, that's a huge part of your relationship, and it's not fair to them to go into that relationship knowing that you have no desire for them, where they have desire for you, and then as the relationship unfolds, and that is a big part of the relationship, to start turning them away and telling them, I don't want it. And then what? Now you have a really toxic situation where this person entered the marriage because this is a rite of marriage, but now you can't fulfill your obligations because you're repelled. You just can't. And that absolutely happens. It's difficult. And I would say, we need to be very careful with that. Dr. Nafisa, did you have anything to add to that? And I'm sorry, I know you have to leave soon. So, wow. Okay. We've been going on for a while. Did you have anything to add to this question?
No, I like exactly what you said as far as don't marry potential, and don't feel like if you're not physically attracted to them, obviously there seems to be something else inside that's not attracting to you to them either. So I would not give them, like, I love what you said, don't give them false hope. They might be the most perfect companion to somebody else, even the person that's not very religious. Maybe they will find somebody else that is at the same religious practice level that they are, and they can both grow together. But if you're not at the same level, then you're not compatible, and that's somebody that I would not pursue and move forward with.
Great. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Nafisa, can you tell us how much time you have left before we let you go? Because I want to try to see how many more questions we can take with you here. Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people on the stage, and then 7 more people in the queue. I don't think I can get to everyone, but how much more time can you give us? It's 12.
Yeah, I have about 20 more minutes. And then, like I said, if people want to reach out to us afterwards on Instagram, I'd be more than happy to answer questions. You can follow me there. And then as far as wanting to download that article, you guys can go ahead and download a free version of it. So you can always have it. It's all concise. It's all put together nicely. transforminganxiety.com/resources if you want to go there. And I'll be here for another 10 to 20 minutes.
Awesome. Great. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. And thank you, Noor. Did you have any follow-up to that?
I just wanted to thank you, Sister Hosai. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah fiki. Thank you so much. MashaAllah. All right. So, alhamdulillah, we have quite a few more people here on stage. If I can, again, just remind everybody, please, let's limit our questions or comments to 1 to 2 minutes, and we'll try to get through to everyone. Thank you so much. Sister Sarah, assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much. First of all, to God, that I didn't miss the chance to talk to you because I attended the session since the beginning. And I will try to utilize every femtosecond of this because really you're hitting on a very sensitive and important topic in the Muslim community in the Western, or in the USA. I had the chance to work on interfaith advocacy, and during this phase, I guess my brothers and sisters thought that I'm well connected. I have the network, so they were dealing with me as a matchmaker actually. So hey Sarah, do you know a brother who is so and so? Hey Sarah, do you know a sister who is so and so? And that wasn't just one time. So I noticed that there is a need and a gap in the community, as like males are there, females are there. Where are the channels where they can meet each other respectively? Because it's no shame that a girl or a female, a Muslim female, wants to get married and a brother is looking for someone. So I tried to be proactive a little bit, and I went to my masjid, one of them, and actually I suggested that to the imam, and we started like a series of healthy relationships in Islam, starting from women and men creation in the Quran, and how we can develop this kind of relationships in the community, first of all, as single women or people who would like to get married again. And it was amazing, but it wasn't consistent. So I hope like at a certain point I can get in touch with both of you in order just to discuss it more and see how we can do this and develop it if it's worth it. So I have a couple of questions. I will be very fast at them. How can I, as an over 30 single female, highly educated, having, let's say, good foundation of religion and holding on that, still virgin, and this is, I put a lot of lines here because it's not by coincidence, it's by choice. How can I protect myself with mental health and stand out and again safely to the community, friends, family pressures who just advise me to jump in, get married, have the chance to experience blah blah blah, because I do exactly as you advised us. I take from 3 to 6 months if there is a potential in giving that time, because I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to hurt myself or hurt another one. So I do exactly probably as you advised us, and thank you so much. Please follow this advice because it's important. So how can I do that in a peaceful way without losing my family, without have fights with my friends, especially that they are close? I'm not allowing everyone to advise me on that, but if they are close and I want to maintain healthy relationships, how can a female over 30 virgin in the Western community stand up for herself in that choice? Quick one is you shared it's preferable not to share a lot of information and to be careful about sharing private info. First of all, would you please give us some kind of advice on this more? Like, like what kind of info specifically that I can correlate that some of my female Muslim singles, they are trying to use online platforms, which I don't use because I know myself, I won't be able to get to know person safely from that platform, but they are trying to. So that's my second question.
Okay,
For the
mashallah.
third one, you advised for therapy before marriage, which I 100% agree. And when I asked the person that I was talking to, he was extremely offended. So even though he's an engineer, highly educated, but how can I put this request in a way that doesn't offend someone? And of course, I'm not like throwing a stone in his face. We talk, we just break the ice, and then when we get to know each other, I say, I'm expecting to do this kind of sexual disease like lab work, and what do you think about this and what do you think about that? He was extremely offended. And I discovered that we are not like on the same page, so that's why I had to close that page. Thank you so much, and I really hope you do another room and the third room and have this kind of conversations as serious, because you can see how many people are here. I'm sure every one of them has different aspects of different questions and intentions that they would like to discuss with you. So I appreciate, seeing you more and more, Dr. Nafisa and Hussein. Thank you so much again.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Sister Sarah, for your comments, your kind words, mashallah, and your very relevant questions. I'm going to try to recall all of them. Maybe Dr. Nafisa can also chime in, inshallah.
I hope my questions were not shocking.
No, not shocking whatsoever. I just want to recall them. But I think it's important, as far as, let's go backwards, because the brother or whoever, if anybody takes offense, oh, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes. You were not.
Oh,
no.
wow. So I was
It's
talking for a while now. Okay, thanks.
That's okay.
That's really funny. So my husband's actually in the room and I hear him yelling and I'm like, what is going on? He's like, you're muted. So, okay, I'm so sorry about that. But thank you, Sister Sarah. So what I wanted to say was, let's work backwards. The question that you just asked, any brother who takes offense at wanting to have more transparency, huge red flag, because it's not something they should personalize. That's ridiculous. It's something that's your requirement. It's kind of like going into a job interview and they say, this is what we need in order for you to apply for this. The person at that point has no right to be like, what? I'm so offended that you're asking me. It's the same for everybody, right? It's like an equal sort of, rule that you have for all candidates. So I don't think someone should take offense to that. And if they do, that's showing a lack of immaturity, or they're hiding something and they're trying to gaslight you into thinking it was a ridiculous request when it really shouldn't be. And this is why we have to have these conversations, because we have to normalize this request. In our community, it should be now standard practice that if you want to marry someone, you better come with a level of transparency that you're comfortable with, or at least they're comfortable with. Because expecting someone to just buy into whatever you're selling, when we're living in an age where there's so many charlatans and so many people who misrepresent themselves and so many wolves in sheep's clothing, is ridiculous. We're just not in that time where we can have that much trust in how people and what they say. And we have to go through a vetting process, and that may require some transparency. So you had no fault in that whatsoever. And I'm glad that Allah, removed that person, because it was so ridiculous a reaction to be offended by that request. But anyway, I think that also speaks to just the fact that our community needs to mature on these conversations. So that's that point. As far as, being a 30-year-old and wanting to be more vocal and advocate for yourself with friends, I think part of the issue is that we may be, we may be waiting for, or we may be triggered when we react over these topics. So for example, your family members, your friends say something, and then we give them our response as a form of a reaction. Like, you know what, I'm trying. And so we feel frustrated because we don't think it's really getting through, especially if they're putting a lot of pressure on us. So I would say control the narrative. You shouldn't wait for someone to bring up the topic of marriage to you and then you respond to them. I would say you lay it out beforehand. If you're with your girlfriends, especially the closest members to you, you either can do that in your next gathering with them, or if you really want to put your heart, your words, in like put some meaning to it and thought to it, I would write out like what your expectations are from them, like how they can better support you. Because sometimes it's misplaced love or concern where they think that they're looking out for you, but giving unsolicited advice, making someone feel pressured, it doesn't go well. I always tell people, kind of like, like with singles, it's very foolish and patronizing actually for those who are not who are married or who are not in the same situation, to constantly bring this up to single people as though they're not already preoccupied with it, as though it doesn't already weigh on them, that they now need to hear you offer your unsolicited advice and patronizing advice. Don't do that. Don't come at people just because you think, oh, you're not taking this seriously, or you should try this, or you're just this, or you're too picky. I have a lot of people who feel very unheard and unsupported because the people in their lives are just too busy judging them for being single, instead of actually realizing these are real serious situations that weigh down on them. And so we have to be more empathic, we have to be more understanding. But I think instead of waiting around for people to do that for us, we control the narrative. So what I would do is advise you to talk to them directly right now, before they start advising you, and just say, this is what I need from you, and be more vocal about what type of support you need from them. And then I also think it's really important for our singles to be empowered to work with the people in their community that is going to be their like their representative, or someone who's going to be out there looking out for them, And so if you limit it to just your small circle of friends, it's going to, limit you. But if you look at, like, for example, the leadership in your community, if you have a relationship with your local imam or sheikh and his wife and other religious leaders who know a lot of the single people who come through the community, come through the masjid, who volunteer, they are going to be good advocates and allies. So I think we just have to expand our circle and be a little bit more empowered. And of course, there's a delicate way to do this. There's a way to do this with total, decorum and consideration. We're not supposed, you know what I mean? Like, this is private. So you do this in a thoughtful way, but having allies in place that are, kind of in different even cities and communities. Like, if you're open to moving from your locality and you have good friends that are in other parts of the country, you should empower them to say, listen, I'm looking to get married and I'd really appreciate it if you could look out for me. This is what I would like. And I'm looking for a range of this age or whatever, I'm open to these, the people of this background, whatever it is, but kind of empower people with information, because a lot of people they're inhibited by asking you or even approaching the topic because they don't feel it's right for them to do so. But if you empower them and take a little bit more control over your situation, I think you'll find more people open to at least looking out and telling you about potentials, and that clearly opens up more channels for you. So try that. I'm so sorry. Sarah, I was trying to go backwards. I forgot your very first question that you asked.
Well, that was the first question, but it was about what kind of private information.
Oh, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah, and specifically talking about the online dating apps that my friends are
sure.
using.
Okay, so that's the question I missed. Now, what you disclose about yourself, what I meant was like your past sins, okay? There's nothing in Islam that says you have to tell people what sins you've done, okay, before marriage. That's nobody's business. It's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, if you've done certain things that have consequences to you and that could potentially have consequences to your future partner, like having a previous marriage, a child, I mean, those things are not, unless it's outside of marriage, the child anyway, but not necessarily sins, but they could be, they could impact your future partner. You have to disclose those things. So there's a fine line between what is, what's required of you to disclose, but also what is totally personal, nobody else's business. So that's what I meant. But in terms of online, putting yourself out there, there's a lot of different platforms. What I would advise everybody here, I don't know if he's in the room or if he's joined at all today, but there's a brother, Baba Ali. He's the founder of Half Our Deen. He does a lot of rooms in this app, and I really appreciate his commentary. He has plenty of experience working with Muslim singles, and he's developed an app that I think, because he's tested so many different, over the years, ways of making it successful, that I think he's found a rhythm that's proven to be quite successful. He seems to have had a lot of great success stories out of that. And of course, it's all in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I do think there are some online platforms, paid services, I would say, that we should look into and not limit ourselves, because there may be people that are just not in our locality, that we don't have networks to, that are the exact right fit for us. And it's only through that medium that we may ever come to know of them. And so I would say look into those types of platforms, but follow Baba Ali. I think he may have a room here. I don't actually know what it's called, but just follow him. That's actually his name. He's also on Instagram, and look out for his rooms. He's doing rooms almost every single day. I've seen him do rooms on marriage. So you might see one later today even, but follow him inshallah, and you'll get some good guidance. And in terms of what to disclose, I would say don't be so forward that you're putting your whole life online, but give the most important requirements that you have. And also, I'm sorry, and I'll just finish up with this point because we got to move on. But this, what I said earlier, I think really matters. We have to employ wing men and wing women in our lives. We have to get those allies on our side, because Sister Sada, to be honest, you shouldn't, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like any single sister, we have, we have appointed, even by Sharia, right, people that are supposed to advocate for us, right? Our mahram is the one who's supposed to be having these complicated conversations, so we don't have to have them. So if we don't want to employ our fathers or our brothers, then we should at least have some protocol, something where these complicated conversations about what your prerequisites are or what your requirements are, you're not having to have them. You're just there to get to know someone. But like a lot of that can be taken care of with someone else that you appoint to say, listen, this person's interested in me. And I think if you do that from the very beginning, it sets a strong tone that you are a woman that has, you've got yourself together, and you're not just this, vulnerable person that someone can just come and kind of do a mind, wash on you or brainwash, whatever, and get you into their clutches, So I just feel like we have to be better at having people on our side who can do a lot of these complicated conversations for us, and then we just are there to get to know one another and expand our understanding of each other, but not to do this part of it. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. Dr. Nafisa, anything to add to this before we move on to Samin?
I think you handled it really well.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to go really fast here. I apologize for the speed, but it's so important that we try to get to everybody here. So Sister Sada, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your supportive comments, inshallah. Please feel free to reach out to us if there's any follow-up questions, inshallah. And we'll go on to now Sister Samin. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the stage.
Hey, walaikum salam. I just had a question. So I was reading an article that you guys wrote. It's really beneficial. Thank you so much. I came across number 7, which mentioned controlling behavior. And I'm talking to someone right now who prioritizes Islam just like me and has specific preferences. And for example, like he voices opinion on like proper hijab. However, I'm not sure if those preferences can lead to controlling behavior. So I guess like his mindset is kind of, I don't know, like I feel like he has like this mindset that's like obviously like, you know, when we get married, like, you know, we he's like, oh, like, you know, the wife's the responsibility of the husband. And then but then he also has like, I guess like when we're talking, like he gives up the vibe that's like, oh, if I do something wrong Islamically, then he's also gonna get sent for it, I guess.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. So, you know, a good question. Thank you so much, Sister Samin. I think this is just kind of a tip that I would give to any sister when you're looking at a brother's like religious philosophy, his views, the way that he kind of, you know, how does he see himself in terms of his relationship to God, in terms of his relationship and responsibility as a husband and a father. I think you want to look at who are the scholars that he follows. It's a very important question to determine what angle he's coming from, because if you have very hardline conservative, very, you know, sort of, you know, very, very, I don't know, I mean, extreme, not extreme, but you know what I mean? Like there's different views, there's different manhaj, and it's important to know what type of people are influencing and shaping his ideas. So I would say, try to find out which scholars do you like and what books do you read, and try to get a better comprehensive understanding of who he's influenced by. Because when it comes to relationships and a man's status in a marriage and who he is and the rights and responsibilities, a lot of these topics have you know, they have, I mean, there's whatever, I mean, Sharia is very clear on these things, but then we have a lot of interpretation, right? And those interpretations matter. You want to know who is my potential partner going to be, who is he influenced by, whose interpretation is he living by? Do I agree with that person's interpretation? Because, you know, a lot of women give up their rights when they enter marriages without these types of questions, because all of a sudden Islam is now used over, you know, everything. It's like, well, I'm the husband, I'm the, you know, head of the family, and I can say this and that. But if you're not on the same page with who you listen to, you may come from a different perspective that says, actually, this is the opinion that I hold. And now it's just like, you know, a tug of a war of ideas. So I think being very clear about who this person is influenced by will give you a pretty good indication of whether or not he has a rigid view and he's not one that, you know, kind of is open, or, you know, he's going to be enforcing his views on you. And so you need to know that before you enter the relationship, inshallah. So check that out, Sister Samin. Nafisa, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, my red flag went up when he had a preference on the hijab and how you wear your hijab, or how he feels what you do reflects on him. That's going to control everything. That's going to be, if your house is dirty, he's going to look bad. If you aren't put together when you go in public, he's going to look bad. And so those are controlling behaviors, in my opinion, and things that you need to really look out for. And they will lead to more restrictions moving forward. In most cases, I don't know if this is true about him. I don't know who he is, but everything Hosai said about if his views on Islam are different than yours, those are going to create potential problems. And then if he feels everything you do is a reflection on him, that's going to create potential problems as well.
Right. And there's one thing where a man, sees a woman as her own independent person. She has autonomy. She has the right to do things according to her, own pace. And he can advise, like, I think you should try this and that. But it's another thing to dictate. And that's what we were trying to say earlier, because, there's a very fine line, and the tone matters. I feel like when we talk about marriage, if we're not coming at it as a place of mutual respect and mutual well-being and mutual benefit to one another, and it is really about power dynamics, then it is going to cause a lot of friction and resentment and problems in the marriage. But when two mature individuals come together and they're not threatened by each other, they actually do respect each other, and they want to create an environment of love and mutual respect and compassion, then the tone with which they say these things are very clear. There's no power. There's no personal voice in there. It's just like, this is, I think, best for you. It's not, I think that you should do this, right? That I is really important. And someone very wise once told me that that's also a very red flag. A person who's constantly using the I, statements when they're speaking to you, and basically or in a capacity of authority, and they're focusing on I. You're not important. It's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what the Prophet ﷺ says. But even then, we have to remember compassion, mercy, respect, all of those things. You can't just throw that out the door and be like this, commanding, authoritarian. That's not how a marriage should be. So I really think that's something to consider. But thank you, Sister Samin. Alhamdulillah. Did you have any follow-up? Okay. All right, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. So we'll go on to the next person here. MashaAllah, Sister Mona, welcome. You're also new to Clubhouse. We see the party hat. Welcome to Clubhouse and welcome to Mizan. Uh-oh. I'm seeing some connection issues. Oh, wait. Can you guys hear me? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I lost connection, I think, for a moment. Welcome, Sister Mona. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Jose and Dr. Nafisa. Wealth of information, and I'm loving every minute of this. I have a question that what would you say to someone who was in a marriage for 15 years? It was an abusive marriage, and her personality has really she's hit rock bottom. She's slowly getting out of this. She's filed for separation. The divorce is on the way, and she has 2 kids, and she's coming back into her life again. But she feels lonely in her struggle, in the sense that she can't really talk to anybody what she's feeling inside, and she's trying to connect, and she also has this fear that I'm 38 years old, and do I have, she doesn't want to be alone, and I mean, she's scared about she's losing time, and the fact that she's so bogged down with kids and this divorce and her career and putting all these pieces back together, that she'll never get anywhere in terms of having another relationship. Yeah.
So, first of all, Jazakallah khairan, Sister Mona, mashallah, for this question. I think a lot of sisters or even brothers who may be going through similar situation can benefit from this question. So thank you for asking. There is absolutely life after divorce. As someone who was previously married, I can tell you from experience that alhamdulillah, Allah is in control. And, we have to go through different challenges in life. Some people, they go challenges with their wealth, some people with their health, some people with their relationships. But this idea that life is suddenly over and divorce is the end of all happiness and now it's just misery is all from Iblis. This is a spiritual attack, and he wants to, push us all towards despair and hopelessness. But we have to know that that is not part of our faith. We do not despair, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of everything. And whatever your marriage was, or the person's marriage was, if whoever's in the audience is listening and you're in a situation like this and you're going through a separation or a divorce right now, you have to look at different life experiences that we all go through, and each one has its function. It has a purpose. Nothing is in vain. Every single thing we go through is for a purpose. And so if the purpose of that relationship was just to bring two beautiful or one child or no children. Maybe you don't have children, but you evolve. Like in my previous relationship, I went through 8 years of a very difficult relationship. It was emotionally abusive, spiritually abusive, but I came out of it with a very strong resolve and a very strong spiritual connection. So I didn't have children, alhamdulillah, with that person, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me a spiritual identity through that marriage that I would absolutely, if you ask me again, I would go through that all over again, because I got to see what life was really about. I tasted life in terms of really seeing the just the hardships of what life can bring to you. But what that did is it, alhamdulillah, propelled me to my creator, and I was able to have a very strong spiritual connection. So we can't look at what happens to us with the lens of why and why me. These are all shaitanic thoughts. What we do is we say this life is a test. Everybody has different tests. If one's test is through their marriage, then you look at, what am I going to collect from that experience? Whether it was 15 years, 10 years, 8 years, 20 years. I know someone who's going through something very difficult right now. And, 20 years into a relationship, subhanAllah, it's a very long time to be with someone. And if it ends in a divorce, alhamdulillah, ala kulli hal, we don't, in every situation there's khair. So I would say, like, there's absolutely life after divorce, but, prioritize what you need to do right now. Right now, for a person who's going through a separation, is getting your life together, right? Resolving this legally, whatever that means. And especially when the children are in place, there's all that custody, all of those things have to be dealt with. So put pause in terms of, focusing on that. And then when it comes to your future, that's tawakkal ala Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears the dua of every single person. And the one who has you're more, the higher your conviction in his ability to give you what you want, the more likely you will get that dua granted. And so we have to, why do we say this? Because the Prophet ﷺ taught us, right? Ana indi dhanni abdi bi, I am in the opinion of my servant. So when you have a strong resolve and you know for a fact that nothing is difficult for God and he can answer your duas for you, then you approach it with that understanding that, Allah, you know what I need. I have these two children. I've just been out of a difficult relationship, and I need to move forward, and I want a companion, and I want someone. So please bring someone good to me, good for me, and just keep, making that dua, but working towards your own individual identity. And we mentioned this in the very beginning. Relationships are beautiful and they're absolutely, wonderful. We should do it. It's something highly recommended, but it's not the end all be all of a person, if you're in a relationship or not. We were created to worship God, and that is the best gift that he's given us, is the gift of existence, to know him. So if we all shifted our focus and said, I want to develop that, I wanted to be that person, I want to be the most observant, and have the most beautiful relationship with God, and just put our heart and soul into that, then everything that we need in this life to facilitate our happiness and our fulfillment, he will take care of. But when we start to dictate what we think is good, and we don't think about that, or that kind of becomes in the back burner, then we suffer. So I feel like it's so important to emphasize that the most important identity we all have are believers. We're all believers. We believe in God. We were created to worship him. So continue making dua, but don't think that life is over now just because for whoever, and this isn't for you, Sister Mona, but whoever you're asking on behalf of, and anybody else in the audience, well, there's absolutely life after divorce, inshallah. So Jazakallah khair. Sister Dr. Nafisa, did you have anything to add to that?
I do want to say that after divorce, it'll take time to heal, especially if it's an abusive marriage, especially if there was a difficult marriage. Take that time to heal, go to therapy, learn from the mistakes. It's not always one-sided. Even if it was an abusive relationship, you did play a role in that, and that you allowed it to continue for as long as it did. So you need to acknowledge that part and really heal. In 2 weeks, not this Friday coming up, but next Friday, my interview about divorce will come out, and she's a divorce coach talking about all the necessary steps somebody has to take in order to have go through the choppy waters of divorce in a healthy way. So look for that on the Mental Health Break podcast. It was a wonderful discussion all about divorce. So take the time to heal. Don't jump into another relationship until you have healed, because according to her statistics, the percentage for the divorce rate jumps after your first divorce. So it's not like the second time it'll be better. For a lot of people, if they haven't learned the mistakes of the first marriage and they haven't healed themselves, the chance of them getting divorced increases after the second, during the second marriage, if you haven't done the work. So I would really highly recommend that. And unfortunately, I do have to go, but I am planning on releasing this on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We can continue the conversation there. All the questions will be on there as well, except for the other ones that you need to still answer. But I will have to go, unfortunately. But thank you so much for inviting me here, Osai. Thank you for having this discussion. I think it's so important for us to continue to keep having this discussion. But also, I'm thinking we need to do a room about advice from divorced people.
Yes.
For the newlyweds, so that they can, what they've learned from their struggles, so that they can give the advice to the people that are
That's our next program, you guys. Dr. Nafisa just announced it. So first of all, I want to personally thank you so much. This has been such an incredible conversation. We've been going out 3.5 hours, you guys. We started exactly at 9 o'clock, mashallah. And as we mentioned, this entire recording up until this point, because Dr. Nafisa has to leave, is being recorded. She will post it on her podcast. If you follow her, go right now. I think, Mona, you were asking about how do you find out more about this. Follow Dr. Nafisa right here on Clubhouse. Look at her profile. Click her picture. At the very bottom of her profile, you'll see her Instagram handle, which is Dr._Nafisa, underscore Sekandari. Follow her on Instagram. She will post this talk eventually soon. The divorce conversation will be posted in 2 weeks on a Friday. So check that out, and then follow her website and her blog and all of the information she has. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I really don't say that. I say that with full sincerity, because I've known her my whole life pretty much, but I've benefited so much from her, as have many others. She has great content, so definitely follow her. And then we will schedule another room. I think it's an important conversation. I really appreciate that she offered to do something for singles from the perspective of those of us who have been divorced before, because I think that's actually quite brilliant. And I know other sisters as well. I mean, inshallah, these are things that not everybody's always comfortable to talk freely about. But I think when you put, this is one of the things about traditional societies. Women were socialized with women of different ages and backgrounds because you learn experiences. But in this society, we end up staying within our peer group, and we don't really have those perspectives, and that really hurts us. It's a hindrance. So we have to open dialogue and benefit from the knowledge and wisdom of older people, or people who've had life experience more than us, not necessarily always age related, but just experience in life. And we can heal for each other and help one another. So inshallah, we'll look at that as maybe being a follow-up to this conversation. But I want to thank you so much, Dr. Nafisa. Inshallah, we will we'll be in touch, obviously. But I love you. Thank you for everything. And we'll see you next time, inshallah.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. Have a good day.
All right. Take care.